Hey everyone, this is my build guide for the Icicle Heartseeker Marksman that I have played since Season 2 League start. This is a cold deck stacking variant of the Heartseeker skill, where you shoot your cold projectiles, and when you hit an enemy you let the icicles from Rain of Winter proc, a couple of more projectiles from this sphere relic here, and the Puncture procs from Heartseeker. You can basically clear the whole screen and also increase your survivability. As you can see also it's a almost no mana cost build, so very easy to play. A lot of quality of life actually included in this whole build. Also the skill rotation, quite easy. You pretty much just hold right click, use shift for mobility, use smoke bomb for some defensive buffs, evade, shift. That's pretty much all the buttons that you need. I have a decoy as an unspec'd skill so that you can taunt some enemies, get into a safe position and shoot the enemies from the distance. And Shuriken is pretty much my, just another movement skill that sometimes I like to click to get a little bit more mobility into the build here. But as I said, those two skills you don't really need to use. You can completely use it with those three skills. Also, I wrote the whole written guide here on LE tools, which pretty much includes everything you need to know for the build. I will also always update it if you have questions. Build planner here, all the mechanics pretty much for the whole build. I included also the skill tree progression for every skill, so you can always look this one up. Then I got the passives. With the Weaver tree, if you want to know it, you can also click my character profile here, because I didn't want to include this one. This is completely up to you. Pretty much was going over all the uniques, items, blessings. I got the leveling variant here because I also uploaded some videos about the Dragon Song version. Then because some people asked me about Puncture versus Dark Quiver, I basically only use Dark Quiver on bosses because the Puncture procs cannot go off. That's why I included this one. If you want to just stick to the Dark Quiver version. Also, with Dark Quiver, you can play this build at 500 corruption without Puncture being specialized. I just use it for mapping because 95% of the time you map with this whole build. That's why I just leave it in. I got the load filter and pretty much all the videos uploaded. So yeah, if you're interested in, you can always check my written guide. I will start with some gameplay footage. It's going to be 500 corruption. I would not really recommend to go higher with this build. I'm quite honest with you guys, it's not the tankiest build that I made. It's Marksman. There are more tanky versions like the one from Dread or the Curse, which is a Frostbite version. But with this one you just have to play a little bit more careful. Stay at range so that the enemies cannot hit you. This is pretty much the whole gameplay rotation. So you have to be a little bit faster with clicking, with dodging incoming attacks manually. I don't really rely that much on skills or numbers. I pretty much rely on my own gameplay to survive here. Other than that, or if I just like stand still, the enemies would kill me pretty fast. So yeah, it's a very active gameplay with this version here to survive. Probably for new players, I would recommend to stay between 200 and 400 corruption. I could technically push this build. I mean, it's softcore, so I could pretty much push this one to I don't know, like 1000 corruption. It's like at this moment I can also just get one shot all the time. It doesn't really matter. The damage is there. It's not comparable to the Dragon Song version, of course. But as you can see here, I can not comfortably. I mean, for me this is like a comfortable playstyle because I'm used to marksman gameplay. But I think it's a lot of clicking, a lot of moving for some players. So yeah, either you go with the tanky Frostbite version, it goes with Ward, or you play just a little bit lower corruption. Not every build has to play like high corruption. This was pretty much. Now I forgot one, of course. Over here. So those are pretty much the three buttons that I press. Like I said, when I realize that there's a more dangerous enemy, I can just also put the decoy out over here. He's going there. Or maybe not. Also right now, the exiled mages are bugged for Heartseeker. So if you realize that you're doing less damage on Exile Mages is because they cannot target sometimes, so the Heartseeker cannot target your Exile Mages. I hope the fix is coming soon. And for Dark Quiver, or sorry, for the boss variant, I don't want to like spec into it now, but pretty much Puncture now, you cannot use the procs on a single target enemy. So here you could technically unspec Puncture and go into the Dark Quiver tree. I linked it in my written build planner. It basically looks like this. So you can also like proc black arrows from Dark Quiver as well, so you don't have to manually cast it. I just show you real quick how this would look like. I go with the WASD movement here. So you cast it, and then you can just like focus on the boss and just like kite around like this onto the black arrows, and that you pretty much always get the Dust Shroud stacks while also being inside the smoke bomb, so you would also have smoke bomb on top. And then you can generate a lot of black arrows or Dust Shroud stacks, which makes you a lot tankier on Glancing Blow and on dodge, while auto-procking all the black arrows. I'm not a WASD player. I'm a KBA player, so a KBM player, so that's why this one, I don't know, I don't need it. I don't need my defenses. It really depends all on your playstyle, whatever you prefer. But here I just show you real quick how single target damage is. You can stay at range, dodge pretty much all the incoming attacks, which is quite easy. And for me, this is like much more comfortable to play compared to the Dragon Song version. But Dragon Song, yeah, has a lot more damage actually. But only it's damage when you can. It was 500 corruption. I mean, I don't really need more damage. It's quite powerful at the moment. But also my gear, pretty good. Only just a couple more updates and then pretty much the build is done. Okay, let's talk about the recurve mechanic and also about the puncture procs, which are pretty much the reason why we survive and why we have such a good clear speed. For the gameplay itself, it's very important that you only or always go for the low HP monsters first, because if you kill them quicker, then pretty much the rest of the recurves that were left for the Heartseeker are responsible for the amount of puncture procs. That's why if you have a boss and some small enemies around, and just go for this one, all the small enemies will overwhelm you, you will die. This is pretty much, I think, where most of the people do the mistake. So always go for the small mobs first and then concentrate on the boss again, so that you pretty much stay alone on the screen and can just fully focus on the boss. This is pretty much the most important gameplay tip that I can give you to survive also in higher corruption. Other than that, the main mechanics, as I said, deck stacking. At the moment you can go even higher, like 120, something that I can also imagine to achieve here. Is important for the Morning Frost boots here, because we can of course scale the Icicle procs, Heartseeker itself. The big downside of the deck scaling here is that we need to take care of our resistances a bit more, especially cold and physical. That's why just make sure that also with idols you can pretty much balance your resistance out here again. But from a gameplay perspective, it's quite easy, not a big skill rotation. Just try to attack as often as you can, because also then you can get some stacks up. For example, the Throne of Ambition here, which gives you some more cold damage and also armor. As you can see here, pace is always up, so you are quite fast also with this build. Very comfortable, yeah, like map farmer. And if you stay at range, which is in my opinion the advantage of this build compared to the Dragon Song version, you will also like it's way easier for you also to go through the whole maps. Let's go over the skills. So cold conversion we pretty much have here. Like I said, I have for every skill in my written guide. Also the leveling progression, puncture procs, and this minimum recurve are the strongest nodes in the entire tree. We do also use this node here to get more recurve chance per dex. So here I get like a bit over 50 dex from this node alone, or from 50 recurve chance, I'm sorry. We get a free frailty and armor shred chance here, but the Heartseeker projectile no longer seeks, which is not a problem because, as I said before, Puncture is pretty much doing the clear. It's not, of course, working here because the dummy is not dying, but other than that, the Puncture procs are pretty much doing the job. 1 point here is pretty good, so that Heartseeker always hits the enemy, so very important to take this one. This is a strong damage multiplier for our crit version. Here you can get some crit multi, also some base crit chance, which is not that relevant anymore because the character sheet already shows it that we have over 80%. Also, you only need to achieve 80%. If I shoot, my crit chance even goes a little bit more up because of this node here. So yeah, capping crit is quite easy. Once we also put 1 point into Wound Maker, which pretty much sets a debuff, which is the one over here, critical vulnerability. This pretty much means we get 20% flat crit on an enemy. So critting, as you can see on the yellow numbers, quite easy on this entire build. Then the other points are going into attack speed and mana efficiency. Attack speed, of course, has high value when we have a low mana cost skill here, so we can always spam it. Very comfortable to scale, very comfortable to play. The rest of my points, I sadly only have a tier 3 here. But if you would go for a +4 Heartseeker, the rest pretty much goes into the more damage node here. It's a good damage increase, but as you saw also in the gameplay footage, it's not that big. I mean, I'm destroying pretty much all the content at 500 corruption. Should not be a big issue. Puncture, as I said, very important. You don't need to specialize it. I also tested it on 500 corruption without a specialization and with Dark Quiver. But what's cool is here for mapping that we always have this frenzy duration up, which is 20% increased attack speed. All the other nodes are pretty much going into damage multipliers that are not direct cast. For example, this one based on ailments on the enemy. And then I included the Shadow Dagger proc here, which scales very good with flat damage from Morning Frost, because Morning Frost says +1 cold damage to attacks, and Shadow Daggers on Puncture is both melee and throwing, so pretty much get +1 cold melee and +1 cold throwing. So you double dip here with the Morning Frost, and therefore also the clear will get better. As I said, even without the Puncture specialization, it's very good clear, but it's just a nice trick to get a little bit more damage out of there. There's a bug currently where you can abuse these two nodes here, and then you get extra projectiles. I think this will get fixed soon, so I think this is pretty much the best setup that you go with the Puncture proc setup. This node, like I said, is completely responsible for your survivability and for your clear, most important node in the entire tree. Then for Shift, our movement skill, as you can see with the Shurikens around, those are pretty much giving us the armor buff. I will go over this later. Go for the most important utility nodes here, like movement speed, a little bit of cooldown, that was the point left. When you level this build, you always go here and then movement speed first, but I unspec'd it, that's why I went this route here. Get the invulnerability. The dex here, 1.1 is pretty good, as you can see here. Dodge is going up for the short duration. The 5 Shurikens here, and then we go for the cleanse. We have low cooldown, so pretty much here you can always cleanse some ailments on top. Very good addition for Shurikens, for Shift. Smoke Bomb, also a very typical setup in my opinion. Always rush the Silver Shroud stacks here. You can also cleanse. We increase the duration. We go for the Dust Shroud stacks, especially with the Dark River combination. You can always stay inside the Smoke Bomb, get a shit ton of Dust Shrouds while you are walking over black arrows. You can get your, like I said, the defenses up over 100% if you need more defenses. But for me, it's pretty much a glass cannon build where I stay at range and just like focus on my gameplay. But this is pretty much just like a defensive setup that I can always press, but I mainly use it for the Silver Shroud stack here because it's quite a strong defensive mechanic where you always get a free dodge for certain attacks. So every time when you see this off cooldown, press it, continue attacking, and do the rotation again. Shuriken, pretty much only the armor uptime here with 1 point, it's enough to keep the armor buff up. It's pretty much important to also have the pierce chance here, otherwise if you run into enemies, they will be gone and then also your armor buff is gone. So definitely go for these points here. And this is just a little trick to go to this node here, immobilize enemies, so when someone is close and they or the Shurikens reach the enemy, then they get immobilized by 1 second or 0.5, and during this short period you can just like run away, reposition yourself, and then you're safe again. This is pretty much the whole setup why we go for this node on Shuriken. Not needed, but like I said, it's a good defensive tool here with these throw skills, 3 skills that we have here. Then for passives. I will not go over the order. As I said, it's in my written guide. 8 points here for the attack speed. We stack as much attack speed as possible. 1.5 points here for less damage taken while moving. Haste on hit. We also get haste over here. But with this one we get increased damage, so right now I'm getting 64 increased damage. Once we have haste active, this is 94% increased global damage for us, which is pretty good. We are dex scaling build, that's why we put all the points into here. This is pretty much it for Rogue. Then Blade Dancer, 8 points here, again for the dexterity. Glancing Blow, I don't really need, but I just took as much dexterity as I can. For Falconer, 5 points here for more damage while we have haste. A little bit of health. These were pretty much the last points that I put in while leveling. This one is quite strong. The more health we have, the more endurance threshold also we have here. 3.1k is pretty good on a marksman, to be honest, with HP. I would normally go with the +4 here, then would have less health. So yeah, this is pretty good for 500 corruption at the moment for sure. And then the most important tree is the marksman tree. This and this one right here are pretty much the nodes for your life sustain. So when the life goes down, we get so much health on hit, health on crit. We're always up with the health pool again. So this one very strong node, also with the attack speed. 5 points here just for the evade. The other 3 points not really needed even though we scale dex, but the evade or the haste after the evade is very strong here for speed. 5 points. Increased critical strike chance, and the 5-point bonus for flat bow crit for Heartseeker. Then, like I said, this one, 1-point wonder for the 20% flat crit chance, 5 points for the crit avoidance and the bow critical strike multiplier. Crit avoidance we cap with the node, with this one, and also you don't need the T6 or T7 if this roll is a bit higher. I was a little bit sad here with the 28%, but you can manage to cap your crit avoidance without a T6 or T7 mod here. Then this part here, very strong, more damage multiplier for all your procs. Take this one for sure. Some dodge, also the cooldown is getting reduced here to get the damage uptime even more. Then here, movement speed, also less hit damage taken. So this is a very strong mechanic as well. We abuse these two nodes here to get a guaranteed silver shot stack for every 10 seconds. These two nodes here are your best damage passives in the beginning. So here you get the flat damage, also we take increased damage taken. This one, 2 points alone are enough to get 250% increased bow damage with a skill like Heartseeker, multi-shot, blast rain, a lot of hits. You can always see how fast also all the stacks are going up. And also here, sharpshooter is pretty much always up with the 10 stacks. I just put a couple more points in to get a little bit more armor shred. To increase our damage output. This one point is enough, we don't need more crit, as I said. Reaching 100% crit is quite easy with this build. 5 point for the crit multi, we stack as much crit multi as possible. And here 1 point to get these 2 points here for the Heartseeker recurve chance. Those are pretty much the passives for this build. Then for the gear, I pretty much followed everything that I had on my original build planner, so I'm quite happy with my current gear. This is pretty much the only update that I want to have, but I'm playing MG. Right now the bow is quite expensive because a lot of people are playing it. T7 roll here, the crit strike chance here, very important to also scale our Icicle flat crit. Bow attack speed, always good of course. My second roll that I would like to have would be crit multi. That would be a huge damage increase. Sadly I didn't get it yet. Morning Frost, as I said, for the damage scaling. Try to get it with movement speed and dexterity. Good roll here. Then Peak of the Mountain, quite easy to get with LP, Dex, Vitality, or increased damage while wielding a bow. I would prefer increased health, but also if you need some resistances, also quite good to get this one here. These two are not really required for the build, but they do or give a good addition to it. The Tracker here also easy to get with LP. Try to get bow attack speed, Dex, something like slow, chill. While we stay on range, we want to slow the enemies down so that it's also like harder for them to reach us. That's quite a good defensive mechanic here. If you need a little bit more resistances, you can also put the resistance on top, but slow and chill is something that I prefer usually. The other stats are also quite good with increased cold damage, with flat cold damage. Also the Puncture procs are getting like a new VFX with the cold Icicle. It's a very cool addition to the build to stick with the whole cold projectile theme. Then this one, the Sphere. Many people ask me why I put this one in and don't balance my attunement and intelligence. It's quite hard to balance it out with Reign of Winter because Reign of Winter gives us attunement. You could technically try to balance this out. I don't recommend for casuals that will not chase this build to the limit, because you will probably always get an upgrade. And if, for example, I manage to balance this one out, find a new Reign of Winter with 2 LP, and it has 13 attunement, then the whole balancing is fucked again. So that's why I didn't focus, and I don't also recommend to focus on it. We would get more cold damage, which is true, but even with this, when you look down to this number here, we get good increased cold damage actually from the Sphere alone. I mean, like I said, it would be a good damage increase, but it's not like really that like required to do. Also, this Sphere here has a good chance for LP. That's why Dex, Crit Multi, something like Endurance or Resistance, very good addition to the build also, again, to stick with the whole cold theme. The other important like unique is the Throne of Ambition. 20 stacks, so that's more cold damage, more armor, good addition also on both offense and the defense point. Then with the body armor, I would recommend the Dragon Hide because of the flat crit that we can get here, also with the crit avoidance to cap it. Heartseeker level, Dex, health, or even dodge, like increased dodge would also be a good addition here. Then for the amulet, crit multi, cold pen, health, some resistance. I also played with the swine before. That was also a good addition for some defenses, because some people ask me, just go for the regular bone amulet at the end. It's quite easy to get one like this. For the belt, I would recommend Spider Silk to make your resistance balance a lot easier. You could also go with the armor-based one to buff this part here with Throne of Ambition, and of course with the Shuriken buff. But I think for gearing, this is a bit easier for you to do. Go with the cleanse, increase cold damage, double life. Pretty easy to craft this one actually, because you can leave the cleanse at tier 1, and then you can focus more on the other 3 stats. Very easy to do. And for the rings, I prefer normally the silver rings, but this was quite good to pretty much cap everything here. Cold damage, Dex, always try to get the Exalted mod on the Dex, crit avoidance, some resistance, pretty much the same here, health. They look pretty similar actually from the mods. These gloves are quite insane for my build. I go with Dex, crit chance, hybrid health would be better, and I got a T5 seal here with cold resistance, with physical resistance to pretty much help out with the Morning Frost, resistance drain here from deck stacking. And that was pretty much everything here for my gear. For idols, as I said, Throne of Ambition, the only unique that I recommend. Then all the other one, I'll be quite honest with you, focus on health and resistances. I got this one here for a little bit more damage with the crit multi, also endurance here, so that I get closer to 60% cap. Just focus on vitality, health, and resistance idols. The new Weaver idols are very strong. Also, if you are done with your resistance capping, you can also go with something like cold penetration for some good damage addition here, which is global for the Icicles and for the Heartseeker. So you have some room to play around here, but as I said, make it as comfortable for you as you can. For the blessings, pretty much straightforward. Void resistance I highly recommend. You could also go with crit multi to get even more damage out of this, but as I said, focusing on resistances on rogue is quite important because it's easy, or it's harder to get actually on rogue in general. Here I would go with the all resistance. There's also the possibility to go with the crit avoidance. The crit avoidance we already get here from the passives, and as I said, from a ring slot or from the helmet, so it's not really that hard to get. That's why I would highly recommend to go for the all resistance blessing here. On Lagon, you can go either for increased cold damage, which I recommend for damage output, or if you're struggling with the lightning resistance, then you can go also, like I said, for the lightning resistance one. But with the sphere, you already get a lot of lightning resistance here, so I would recommend again with the damage mod here. Armor on this one here, I can also go a little bit higher. This one, definitely the go-to, go with the cold shred. A big damage improve for your whole build, for Heartseeker, for the Icicles, to get a lot more damage out of it, of course. And that's pretty much everything for the build, guys. It was an amazing ride since the league start. Also from all the feedback from you guys, I saw some content creators playing it which was amazing to see. I'm a small content creator. I don't consider myself a content creator. I'm a gamer at the end. I just like to share knowledge, share what I do. Also, as I said, as a summary for this build, not a big like corruption pusher, a very easy or like a good league starter where you can farm your gear with a fast character like Marksman, good clear speed. This is pretty much where I recommend this build. If you want to have a more tankier version, go with the Frostbite one from Dread or the Curse. So yeah, very cool build that I'm super happy with, and I pretty much did all the content except Uber Everoth, and this is going to be very hard with a Marksman for sure. If you have any questions, let me know. As I said, the written build guide is also in the description. Thank you guys. Enjoy the build, and my next one is going to be Blade Dancer. Take care.